If you're looking for a high-end ergonomic chair, then you are likely to find a ton of great options. But which will be best for you? In today's video, I'm going to take a look at the 3 highest-end office chairs from the 3 most prominent manufacturers: the Fern, the Embody, and the Gesture, comparing them so that you can find out if one of them will be a good fit for your needs. Hey guys, it's Ryan with BTOD.com, BTOD TV. In today's video, we're going to do something a little bit different and compare 3 chairs. Usually our comparisons will consist of 2 chairs head to head, but I thought this would be a fun video just to put the highest end chairs from the 3 most prominent office chair manufacturers against each other. So the 3 brands we have today are going to be Haworth, Herman Miller, and Steelcase, and the chairs representing each brand are going to be the Fern, the Embody, and then the Gesture. And like I just said, all 3 of these chairs are going to be the highest end ergonomic chairs from these brands, and that's why I chose them for this head-to-head comparison. So we're just going to kind of go through the differences between the 3 chairs and some of the policies that you get with the different companies, just that you get an idea of what you're getting, what you might be missing out with going with each model. So let's get into the video. We're going to start out with price. There is going to be a slight price difference between the 3 chairs. When we look at the Fern, the way that we've got it configured here, basically fully loaded, is going to be about $1,124 plus, depending on your colors and finish options. Looking at the Embody, this is going to be the most expensive chair out of the bunch. Fully loaded, it's going to come to a current price of $1,634. Again, there can be some changes in the price depending on what you select for your options. And then finally, we've got the Gesture here, which prices out with the way that we've got it here fully loaded for $1,150. Again, there is going to be some fluctuation depending on what options you choose. If you go for a leather upgrade or something like that, it is going to kick the price up. But when we look at the base options with the fully loaded adjustment packages, those are the prices that we get. So most expensive Embody, and then the Fern and Gesture are going to be very close to each other. All 3 of these chairs do ship via ground carrier, which makes it very easy to receive these chairs to your home or office suite. And all 3 models will come fully assembled. So simply roll them out of the box, take off some packaging, and you're ready to go. One thing that I will say is that each of the companies needs the original packaging for a return, so I would hold on to that packaging for your full trial period just in case you decide that you don't want the chair and need to send it back. When looking at the warranty, there are going to be some slight differences, but I will say that these are going to be 3 of the best warranties in the business. So looking at the Haworth chair, you're going to get 12 years of coverage on the chair. The only exception is going to be the fabric, which is covered for 5 years. This warranty is good for people up to 325 pounds, and it's also valid for 24/7 usage. Now looking at the Embody, you're going to get 12 years of coverage on the entire chair. This is going to include the fabric, also rated for 24/7 usage and up to 350 pounds. So a slightly higher weight rating than the Haworth chair, and you're getting that full 12-year coverage on the fabric. So those are going to be the advantages with this warranty over the Haworth. And very similarly, the Steelcase chair also has fully encompassing 12-year warranty that covers everything, including the fabric, and that's going to be good for 24/7 usage, but it's valid for people up to 400 pounds. So if we're just looking at the specs of the warranty, Steelcase is probably going to have the best warranty simply because they have a higher weight rating, and it also has that 24/7 usage. A couple differences when we look at how the warranties are handled, though, are going to be technicians coming out and doing things on site, which Herman Miller does provide, whereas Haworth and Steelcase are going to lean towards sending you parts or sending you replacement products in full. So a few differences in the warranties, but overall these are going to be 3 of the best warranties in the industry. Next, we're going to take a look at the build quality on all 3 of these models, and it should come as no surprise that these are 3 of the highest testing chairs that we've had come through our doors. We've only had 8 chairs in total that have tested with a build quality score of 90 or above, and all 3 of these chairs were at that point with 90 plus scores. There are going to be a few differences in how the chairs are built and a few differences in those scores. The Gesture received the highest score with a 94, the Embody received the 2nd highest score with a 92, and the Fern was just slightly behind with a 90. Now the reason for these scores are just going to be some of the design aspects of the chair along with the component quality. When we look at the Leap chair, Steelcase is known for over-engineering their chairs, building them to last a really long time, and the Gesture is going to be no exception to this. All of the parts are very high-end, every component functions very smoothly, and one thing that really kind of pushes the Gesture ahead of the other two is going to be the adjustment system itself and how easy it is to operate while you're sitting in the chair. So when we look at the Gesture, you can see on the right side of the chair here, you've got your knobs and your adjustment system. And one thing that's very nice about the Gesture is that when you sit down in the chair, everything can be controlled from this spot right here. And so you don't need to be finagling with this area anywhere else. It's very simple to just reach down and make all of your adjustments. They're very sleek, very hidden. You don't have a lot of knobs and levers hanging out. And so it contributes to a very high-end design. And with those high-end components, this was one of our highest ranked chairs in terms of build quality. When looking at the Embody, similarly, it also has very high-end components with a ton of technology. The node system in the seat and the flexible backrest are very, very unique and part of the reason why the chair is so high-end. All of the components are very high quality. It functions very smoothly. It doesn't quite have that same unique style of hidden, sleek adjustment package as the Gesture, and it does tend to make a little bit more sounds when moving, but that is pretty common with chairs at this price point just because a lot of these chairs do have a lot of plastic on them to keep them lightweight and to keep them flexible, and unfortunately that can lead to some creaking and some noises, and we have found that that's a little bit more prevalent on the Embody as compared to the Gesture, which is why we see a little bit difference in score. Now when looking at the Haworth Fern, another prime example of high-end design with good quality components, arguably the best looking chair out of the bunch, and the 4-layer technology in the back is very, very unique to the Fern, and it's definitely something that was introduced to this chair through a lot of studies and trials with their engineering and design team. Also looking at the Fern, high-end components throughout. One downside with the Fern as compared to the two chairs next to it, which is why it received the lowest score, is that the parts don't feel quite as solid. You will feel a little bit more wiggling in things like the armrest and the backrest as compared to these two chairs, but I don't want to make it seem like it's not a high-end chair. It's still one of the nicest chairs that we've tested. It just didn't test quite as well as the Embody or the Gesture. The next thing that we're going to take a look at is going to be the seat comfort on all three chairs. And seat comfort is a category that we let a large group of people in our office test, score the chairs from 0 to 100. We come up with an average, and this gives us a good mix of opinions and a good solid score based on a group instead of an individual. And these three chairs actually tested very similarly, with the Fern receiving a 76, the Embody receiving a 77, and the Gesture receiving an 80. And I will say that the Gesture and that score of an 80 is going to be near the top of the list of all the chairs that we've tested. So overall, all three of these chairs tested well for seat comfort and should be good fits for most people that use them. There are going to be some differences, so I'll just kind of go down the line here and share with you what you might expect with each seat, starting with the Fern. Now, the first thing that I want to address on the Fern is that it looks like it has a thick, plush, padded seat. And the thickness on the seat is pretty good. It's about 2 to 3 inches, but it's not going to be a soft foam. It's going to be more of a firm seating experience. You can see that when I sit down, I don't sink into the foam, even though it's pretty thick. I'm more on top of it, so it is going to be a firm seating experience. If you're looking for a really soft, plush chair, then the Fern is not going to be a good option for you. It is very comfortable and very supportive. It's just not going to be plush, so you're not going to sink into it. I do like the fact that it's very generous in its size, its width, and its depth, and I do like that it doesn't have any hard edges on the sides or the front, so you're really allowed to sit in the chair, move in the chair. You can even use it cross-legged, however you want. You're not going to be restricted. Another thing that I do like from Haworth is that they tried to incorporate a little bit more flexibility at the front of the seat. A lot of designers are trying to make their chairs more conducive to movement, and that's what they did with the Fern. So they allowed it to basically bend a little bit more than their previous designs with chairs like the Soji, the Very, and then the Zodi. So one nice thing that I do like about the Fern, it doesn't provide the same type of movement as the next two chairs, but definitely an upgrade to the previous Haworth chairs. Next in line, we're going to take a look at the Embody. This is probably going to have the most unique seat out of all of the chairs that we've had come through our office with the pixelated support system underneath the chair. Now, this does not have a traditional padding system. You can see that it looks like it has a little bit of a pad, but it really doesn't. This is actually pretty thin, but I will say that even though it doesn't have padding per se, it still feels a bit softer than the Fern because it creates kind of a suspended feeling, and then the nodes will shift and move with you and keep you supported depending on how you're sitting and using the chair. And because of the way that the chair is designed, very wide, no hard edges, and the pixelated system. This is a great chair for those of you that like to move around and be flexible in your seat. It is going to be a bit on the firm side, like most high-end ergonomic chairs, but a touch softer than the Fern. The final chair that we're going to look at is going to be the Gesture. And the one reason why the Gesture scored a little bit better than the previous two chairs is just because of the style of the padding. It has similar padding to the Fern in terms of thickness, but it's going to be a little bit softer. So you actually feel like you're sinking a bit more into the chair instead of just sitting on top of it like you do with the Fern. So I'll just show you here. You can see that it has a decent amount of padding, and I actually sink into it a little bit, so it is going to create a softer experience than the previous two chairs. And like the previous two chairs, it's very good for allowing you to use it in multiple positions and move because it doesn't have any restrictive edges, it's spacious, and it has a lot of flexibility in the seat. This is going to be the most flexible seat of the three. You can see it's very easy for me to just bend it with my arms, move it with my legs, so a very good overall design in the Gesture seat. It's going to be comfortable for most people due to the softness and the way that it flexes and moves, but that's going to be the similar case with these other two chairs here, all testing very well, just slightly different in the way that they'll feel. The next comfort category that we're going to take a look at is going to be back support, and like the seat comfort category, this is another category where we incorporate a group of people in our office to test so that we can get a good overall score from a group instead of just one individual. And the results for these scores for the Gesture were a 79, the Embody was a 73, and then the Fern was a 68. So a little bit of a difference in scores here, and I'll just kind of run through them to let you know what we found, what you might expect from each different backrest. And this time we'll start with the highest scoring backrest, and that is going to be the Steelcase Gesture with 79. So one very attractive feature on the Gesture is going to be the live back technology from Steelcase, which just gives you multiple zones of support and a lot of flexibility from the back to move and shift and have it stay with you. So I'll just sit down in the chair and you'll see that I've got it in a locked position, but it really allows me to move and flex. It doesn't have a hard frame that's going to be uncomfortable if I hit the edges. So movement and freedom is a very big plus with this backrest, and you're not going to be restricted in any way. It also has a nice high back design. You can see that it goes over my shoulders at about 5'9", so it'll be very supportive for taller individuals as well. And it also has a nice curve. You can see that it's not too emphasized, but it's got a nice general curve, and then the height adjustable lumbar support really allows you to dial that support in. So overall, this is going to be a very well-rounded backrest. It's not going to be something like the Embody or the Fern in terms of the technology. These chairs are going to be a little bit more advanced in that aspect, but the padding, the curve, the overall adjustments, and the flexibility that it allows really just makes it a very consistent backrest for most people, and that's why it tested as the most comfortable compared to these two. Now, when looking at the Embody, again, very unique backrest, similar to the seat design. It has a nodal support system, which is meant to flex and move with you. And I would say that this is probably one of the most flexible backrests that we've ever had come through our doors. And so I'll just kind of demonstrate a bit here, sit down. You can see that it has a nice natural curve, but if I get it in a locked position for you guys here, wrong side. When I lock it, you can see that it has a ton of capability to bend. Maybe if I go backwards, you can see it even more, but this is a locked position. So you can see I'm really able to stretch and move. It's got that high back design like the Gesture, so it's very supportive from your lower back all the way up through your upper back, and it's not gonna have any restriction at all. And the thin design, while it looks like it might not be as supportive as other chairs, it still provides good support and gives you more ability to move because you're not restricted through this area here. Now, one downside with the Embody compared to the other two chairs is you're not going to get any height adjustable lumbar system or any lumbar adjustment whatsoever. But it does have a nice curve to it, a nice natural curve to be supportive. But if you're looking for some type of adjustment with that lumbar system, then you're going to want to go with one of the other two chairs. Finally, we'll take a look at the Fern. The Fern may have the most unique backrest out of the three because of the 4-layer design. It was literally designed to mimic a Fern plant. So you've got a ton of technology going on in here with moving components, flexible components, and then the multi-layer design makes you feel like you're kind of suspended in the backrest. So when I sit down in the chair, you can see that it has a nice natural curve, probably the most pronounced curve out of the bunch. And again, I'll lock this fully upright, so I can show you the full capability of the movement. It moves quite a bit, not quite as much as the Embody, but a bit more than the Gesture. So it's gonna give you a lot of freedom. The thin design, like the Embody, really gives you elbow room and the ability to move and shift and sit however you'd like in the chair. I will say that the lumbar support on this chair is going to be the most pronounced lumbar out of the 3 chairs. And it is so pronounced that some people in our office were really turned off by the backrest, and that is why it received the lowest score, being at 68. I will say that you can get this chair without the lumbar addition. We do not have one here, but I suspect that that might be better for those of you that don't like a really pronounced system, and it might have scored better for those people in our office that really just like a more standard lumbar instead of something that's as aggressive as the Fern. But overall, very supportive system. If you're a fan of a ton of lumbar support, then this is probably gonna be your go-to option. All 3 chairs, very high-end designs, but the backrests are probably gonna be one area where they differ the most. It's just gonna depend on what you prefer and which chair you're gonna go with. And the final comfort category that we're gonna look at is going to be armrest comfort. And we've got a decent discrepancy here in the scores, with the Gesture receiving an 84 out of 100, the Embody receiving a 73, and then the Fern receiving a 69. So the reason that the Gesture received the highest score is both a combination of the pads and then just the huge range of adjustability. The Gesture probably has the most adjustable arms that we've ever tested. And so I'll just kind of show you here. Due to the cantilever design, you really have a unique way to adjust the chair. So you've got your simple height adjustment, but then you've also got a massive width adjustment range, and then fully adjustable arm caps that go front to back and then pivot in and out. So you can see that with the combination of the cantilever and the pivot, you can really put the arms in all sorts of crazy positions. So completely out of the way down, way high, super far in, and then the pads themselves are very comfortable, soft. They do have a bit of an edge to them, but the edge is still soft. So overall, a comfortable feeling to put your arm on, and they feel solid, which is very important with a chair at this price point. It doesn't feel like they're wobbling around or wiggly. Overall, a very, very high-end arm package on the Gesture, one of the best arm packages that we've seen, which is why it scored 84. Now, when we look at the Embody arms, it does have a very nice pad, and they have good adjustment ranges for the 2 adjustments that are provided, but you only get 2 adjustments. So I'll show you here. You're gonna get a height adjustment. You can see big ranges there, very high and very low, completely out of the way, and very high for those tall people. And then you have a really big width range. So they go wide, then very narrow. The biggest downside is that you don't have any arm cap adjustments. You can't swivel these arms, you can't adjust the depth, you can't adjust the width of the arm caps themselves. They are very large, so they have generous space. They're gonna simply be comfortable to rest on, padded, no hard edges, but they're not going to be as accommodating to those specialized typing applications like the Gesture chair will. But I will say that the caps themselves and the padding are among the most comfortable caps that I've tested. The final chair that we're going to take a look at, obviously the Fern. Now, one of the biggest reasons why the Fern tested lower than these 2 previous chairs is because the armrests don't feel quite as solid. The arms on the Embody feel very solid along with the Gesture. And you'll see that when I bring these arms up, you can see that there's going to be some bending there, some wiggling, and this can kind of be, and that's coming from the frame there. You can see how I can bend it. So when you lean on it, you can feel it leaning forward like that. And that's gonna be a bit more uncomfortable than these other 2 arms that remain solid all the time. And the caps themselves are a little bit more conducive to sliding when you don't want them to slide. You can see how easy it is for me to move the cap like that with my arm on it. The caps are comfortable. They kind of have a little bit of a hard edge like the Gesture, but they are soft, so it's comfortable to have your arm on. It's just the solid aspect isn't there like the previous 2 chairs, which is probably the biggest reason why it didn't score as well. But these arms are very adjustable, right up there with the Gesture. I'll show you here. They have really good height range. They've got depth, they've got pivot, they've got width, and then they've kind of got that weird like articulating motion like the Leap and the Gesture. So overall, They're going to be more adjustable, certainly, than the Embody, right up there with the Gesture, but due to them not feeling quite as solid, they did receive a little bit lower score as compared to the Embody and the Gesture. Next thing we're going to look at is the ergonomic adjustments of these chairs, and specifically where they differ in how they adjust. So each of the 3 chairs here will have seat height adjustment, seat depth adjustment, tension control with multiple position tilt limiter options. Where we're going to see the differences is going to be in the armrest, the lumbar, and then a couple specialized adjustments on a couple of these chairs. So when looking at the arms, we already went over this, but the Embody is only going to come with that height and width adjustment, while the Gesture and the Fern, you can get fully adjustable arms that are going to give you that 4-way adjustment plus that articulating motion that really sets each chair apart, making them some of the most adjustable arms on the market. The next difference we see is going to be in the lumbar, with you getting height adjustable lumbar options with the Fern or the Gesture and having no lumbar adjustment option on the Embody. And the final area where we do see some differences are with a couple specialized adjustments. The first being independent seat angle on the Fern. The Fern is the only chair in the lineup that has any type of independent seat angle or forward tilt option. I'll just demonstrate for you here. It just allows you to tilt the seat however you want, so you can tilt it forward and leave it here. And this is really good for those of you that like to work fully upright, kind of perched up on your chair, which can be good for heavy tasking, heavy computing applications. Maybe you're an intense gamer that likes to really lean forward. This can be a nice option for you that you're not going to find on either of these 2 chairs. The other specialized adjustment is going to be on the Embody, and that's going to be independent back angle adjustment, not available on either of these chairs on the outside. And I'll just demonstrate for you here quick. It just allows you to set the angle of the backrest into a specific position before you start your recline. So you can see that I'm already leaned back a little bit, and then I have my full recline range, or I can adjust that by turning this knob. And you can see that as I turn the knob, it's moving the backrest forward. And if I put it all the way forward, you'll see that I'm in a very upright position now. I'm not leaned back, much more forward than the previous position. So it really just gives you a bit more control over how you like to use your chair. And one thing that I do like about that adjustment is that it gives you a little bit more lumbar support if you push it forward, or a little less if you push it back. So it's not a direct lumbar adjustment, but kind of an indirect way to change the lumbar a little bit. The last thing that we're going to talk about with these 3 chairs is going to be the recline function and what it feels like when you lean back in each chair. So first we're going to take a look at the steel case Gesture. This is going to have a pretty standard synchro tilt mechanism. So you'll notice that as I move the chair back, if I unlock it and use it correctly, as I move the chair back, the seat inclines a little bit. Usually this is about a 2-to-1 ratio. This is just a design to keep you in a really good ergonomic posture through the entire recline, which is a very nice feature on the Gesture. You can see that it has very comfortable recline, keeps you in an ergonomic position no matter where you are. One thing that I will say about the Gesture is that this is going to be a much better recline function for those of you that like to recline and stay in a static position. So if you like to recline and just maybe sit right here, or lock it in a position where you sit right here, it can be very good for that. But if you're the type of person that really likes to move and rock a bunch in your chair, it's not the best model for that, because it's not gonna move immediately with you. You can see that when I sit up, my back comes off the backrest, and it's not as smooth as, say, the Embody that we look at next. But static positions, great chair. Rocking motion, not the best pick. Another thing to think about with the Gesture is that when we sit in the chair fully upright, you can see that it goes almost fully upright. The problem is that even when you lock it in this position, there's going to be a little bit of play, and then the live back technology gives you a little bit more play, which means that this position turns into this position. And so you can't really work fully upright because there's always going to be a bit of a wiggle. And so that's one thing to think about. If you like to work fully upright, straight up and down, then you're going to want to go with one of these 2 chairs, because they both can get to that forward position. I'll show you first here with the Embody. We already touched on this with the independent back angle. I've got it cranked all the way forward. You can see that I'm in a very forward posture, and I can lock it in this position and it stays here. So this can be a very good option for those of you that like to work fully upright. And another good thing about the Embody is just the recline function in general. This is going to have that classic Herman Miller recline, the harmonic tilt mechanism. And you'll notice right away when I recline that my butt is going to sink down quite a bit further than we saw in the gesture. If I had it unlocked, there we go. So when I recline, you can see that my butt sinks down more, and it's more of a rocking motion where my body stays at more of a similar angle and just kind of rocks me back and forth. And what this does is it creates a really smooth motion, requiring almost no effort for me to move backwards or forward. So those of you that like to just stay in constant motion like this, maybe you're on the phone a lot or watching a lot of videos, or maybe you just like to move and fidget, this can be a great chair because this is taking almost no effort, but I'm constantly moving. In order to do this in the gesture, I can feel myself coming forward and I'm pushing back. So this is a great design for static positions. This is going to be a good design for those of you that like to be constantly moving. When we look at the Fern, it's going to kind of be a happy medium between the two chairs. It is going to have a synchro tilt mechanism, but it's going to be a little bit more smooth in terms of rocking back and forth than we see on the gesture. Not nearly as smooth as the Embody and not that deep recline like the Embody. But I'll just demonstrate here for you. I gotta get this seat locked back in, okay? So you can see that it has a nice deep recline in terms of the backrest, but my butt isn't sinking down quite as much as the Embody, but it feels a bit more smooth in terms of just going back and forth. So it's much easier for me to do this than in the gesture. So this can be a good chair for both rocking and for static position. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, in my opinion, in a recline mechanism. And another thing is that this chair can be used in a fully upright position. You can see that the backrest does go straight up and down. And from our previous discussion on the independent seat angle, it's the only chair here that allows you to work in a perched position. So just depending on what your needs are, how you use your chair and how you like to sit will dictate which recline function will be best for you. And that's going to wrap up our comparison of the steel case gesture versus the Herman Miller Embody versus the Haworth Fern. I know we covered a ton of information here. I tried to go through as much stuff as possible to help you identify which of these high-end chairs might be best for you. Inevitably, I probably missed something. Make sure to reach out to us if you need more information. We can hook you up with some reviews or simply answer your question via private message, Instagram, however you want to reach out to us. As always, please continue to support the channel with likes, subscribes, bell dings, all of that stuff, and thanks a lot for watching.